Hi, how are you?
Good. Tell us about yourself and how you got into NFTs and what you focus on.
Um, I'm Trinidadian, 35 years old, and I've collected over 1,000 pieces of digital art from hundreds of unique creators. When we talk about being a big collector or the biggest collector, I don't see it as being the person with the largest volume or valued pieces, but more as a community effort. People with exposure to the most unique pieces and most people, and just a whole building community thing in the art industry. So, um, what has gotten me into NFTs is that it offers a unique opportunity where, for the first time ever, digital artists are offered the same benefits as a traditional artist. So we can verify digital art for the first time. As you can see on these slides, some people may be familiar with Nyan Cat. That's the pixelated cat. That's part of internet history. That's a meme. And in the past, anyone could just right click and save this image, and their copy is identical to someone else's. But now the creator can verify that this particular one is the original. It is being transferred from my wallet to yours. There's a transaction history that shows that, and people are paying a lot of money to own these pieces of one of a kind digital art, and it could be verified, authenticated, and smart contracts allow features to be added to this that benefit both creators and collectors, such as royalties for life on resale, which goes to the creator, and then those royalties could be used to add extra value for collectors like myself by allowing them to use that money to kickstart a business in a decentralized way and create things around this IP or their brand, create merchandise or a token or a game. And by being an early supporter of artists and many artists, you grow when these artists grow. And it has been very beneficial, mutually beneficial for artists and collectors alike.
Right. I want to touch on that later, the mutual beneficial aspect of NFTs. Um, all right. So we also have my wife, Anya Ayoung-Chee, and founder of Wildflower. We also have Rodell Warner, an amazing artist from Trinidad, living in the States, I think, right now. And Anya, why don't you introduce yourself and the work you've been doing in the NFT space?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. And it's so wonderful to be here with the three of you who have played a major role in my entry into this Web3 space in many different ways. Well, my name is Anya Ayoung-Chee. I'm traditionally a fashion designer, but over the last 10 years have evolved into more of a social entrepreneur and strategist. So with my festival by a brand, Wildflower, which launched in 2020, right before the pandemic began, had to take a major pivot. Of course, there being very few festivals to wear any clothes to. So what you're seeing on the screen here is what we've transitioned into over the last year in particular, twinning our physical garments as digital assets to be worn in the metaverse. But prior to all of this transition into digital fashion, we developed a series of NFTs with Rodell, who is the digital artist on these pieces that are a series of eight. Three of them have been released. They are fully collaborative. As you can see, there's, of course, the model, the photographer, the clothing line, the artist who created the flowers, and of course, Rodell, who created the actual digital art, which Rodell and I have known each other for a very long time. It was just an absolutely magical experience being able to finally collaborate. And then Wyatt and Chris came in towards the end to help strategize how to go to market with this work, which was, to be honest, the biggest learning curve I've ever experienced in my life, and took all of us on a journey that we could never have anticipated. And we are here now as what I would describe as a fashion phygital company, a sort of fashion innovation brand, And we were the first Caribbean fashion brand in the metaverse for the very first Metaverse Fashion Week, which happened in March. So I'm really, really excited about particularly the sort of economic independence and community-oriented creative work that this Web3 space brings for all of us. And I think the Wildflower brand has really sort of touched on a variety of these ways that we can leverage Web3 for our creative freedom and our economic freedom. And that's essentially why I'm so excited about this entire revolution.
All right, beautiful. So a lot of firsts happening in this world and for you. And I know these actually have motion to them in Rodell's animated artwork that we're not seeing here, but people can find them online later. We'll get to that. Rodell, I'll just tell everyone, Rodell is one of my favorite artists in the NFT space. And please share some of your work and tell us about your career as an artist and how NFTs play a part.
Yeah, thanks, Wyatt. Glad to be here with you all. I've been making digital works, or just like sharing or presenting, showing digital work since maybe like 2008. And last year when the NFT boom happened, it became possible to trade these works directly with collectors. Before that, selling digital work was quite difficult. But I still like participated in community with a lot of net artists from all over the world and kind of participated in a sort of informal collective of net artists that still is operating online. And so my art career has been very much a journey of like just being online and kind of experimenting, evolving, participating, very much about community. So last year, NFTs becoming a thing has really kind of changed the way that I interact with my audience, and it's also created a new audience that I'm interacting with. Prior to NFTs, I think maybe my work was mostly interacted with mostly the audience was maybe mainly people who either I'm kind of in community with in the Caribbean, which is where I'm from, of course. I'm from Trinidad. And then kind of like weirdos online who like net art. But now it's kind of in the mainstream, and there's just a huge community on Twitter. Like, because none of the NFT platforms have like a social aspect to them, so everybody's just kind of on Twitter, and there's always those subgroups, and it's a really, really rich, vibrant thing that's happening every day. And we're like making it as it goes along, and we're like having conversations all the time about art has really just been revolutionized, as Anya was saying. It's just a new thing. It's just something else now, and I'm just excited to be participating and to be here, like talking. Like this is what we're doing now, and it's great.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, well, you're a very prolific artist, in my opinion, constantly putting out new work, and I see that you use multiple blockchains and multiple marketplaces for your work, and that's something I'm definitely curious about. The first thing I'd love to ask you all is, I think a lot of people out there, they've heard the word NFT, they hear about it all the time. They know it means non-fungible token, right? But
Yeah.
like, in your opinions, what do you feel an NFT really is? Duckman, why don't you start us off?
Hey, sure. In simple terms, it's a unique token. And its main use case right now is using that digital signature as a form of provenance and authentication for art. And it's funny to hear Rodell talk about like how people are seeing this as a very niche thing, but I really feel like in the future, it'll be one of those things that sounds weird. Like, I don't think Rodell is going to be saying I'm an NFT artist. I think it's like saying I'm a car driver or I'm an email user. He's just an artist, and I think the technology just enables him to have more opportunities to add value to his work to people in this new online space, this new digital identity. So that's what an NFT is.
Yeah, I love that. I totally agree. Rodell, what do you think?
I remember when it just when the word kind of into my consciousness, like friends just started asking me, what's an NFT? Early last year, like maybe in March or something, there was this huge $69 million or the equivalent of $69 million sale that was at Christie's, a Beeple artwork. And because of that sale, everybody an NFT sale, everybody's like, "What's an NFT? What's the thing? What's this thing that just sold for $69 million?" And so everybody knows, my friends, that I'm a digital artist, and so like people are like, Rodell, what's an NFT? I'm like, I have no idea. And at first I was like, I think it's a thing for collectors. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's really anything I want to pay attention to. But so many people kept asking that I was just like, all right, let me go and like try and find out what this is. And it took me a while to understand how it works, what it actually is. I had to kind of do some reading about what blockchain technology is, how that works. I learned that it's basically a ledger. It's basically a record that's kept on a network of computers. So a blockchain is just a network of computers that holds a record, and the record, is verified by every one of these computers. So when all the different computers say this record, we have the same record in every computer, then it's like locked in, and that's that like block, and it then moves on to like another, verifying another record. So when you make an NFT, you're basically entering a record into this like network of computers, this ledger, and you're making tokens. So the information you're entering is a token. So the NFT is like this digital entity, this token that's associated with an artwork that you can trade. I heard an analogy that I liked a lot. It was like, how there are some people who collect like props from film sets. So like, if it's like Star Wars or something, there's like a Wookiee, there's like a Wookiee costume somewhere that somebody owns, and they're like, yeah, Star Wars, the first one that ever came out, the Wookiee costume, I own it. They don't own Star Wars, but they own something that's associated with Star Wars that's like one of a kind or rare and collectible. That's what NFTs are. It's like a collectible thing that's like related to an artwork that you can own. There's only one of it, or there's only a few of it, or the one that you have is like verifiably unique, and you can sell that there. And the thing about it is that the fact that the value of it is actually derived by, or like defined by, the community of users. I mean, the Wookiee costume from the Star Wars movie has like absolutely no value intrinsically, really. It's just some fur and a mannequin or something. But because everybody in the world loves Star Wars, it becomes this really valuable thing. You're like, I have this, the one thing, I have it. And so the NFTs, it's just a digital token, it's not the artwork itself. It's just this like digital entity that you can transfer from wallet to wallet. But if enough people know the artwork and like find value in it, then that NFT has value for that reason. And a lot of the conversations that came out, so like, what is an NFT? Ended up being conversations about money, and like, what is money, and how does money get value? And then being like, this mind blowing realization that money is just this thing that everybody decides has value. And so if artists are minting, and minting like, like you mint money, if artists are minting tokens that a lot of people decide have value, for a moment it was like, well, so is digital art money now? And so there are all these interesting conversations around NFTs that are like, about value, about community, about kind of collectively deciding on the value of a digital entity. And that's what we're doing. We're like every day negotiating the value of all these different entities, all these different like tokens that are associated with different artists' artworks, and just navigating this like new way of creating currency around art.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The fact that a digital artist now can sell something that is trackable and traceable and official, and I mean, it's such a huge game changer, I think. digital artists. And last night, or a couple nights ago, Anya was showing me a dress that Kim Kardashian was wearing at the Met Gala that was actually the original dress that Marilyn Monroe wore. And how would anyone know that? You know, someone's auctioning that and keeping track of that. But to me, it was just another dress. And I think that, to me, is very much like NFTs. Like, someone might just say, well, it's just another JPEG. But no, I actually have the records that this is the original, and therefore it makes it a collectible. And
Yes.
Anya, I'm just curious. No, sorry, go ahead, Rodell.
I was just going to point out that it's very similar to traditional art collecting. So, like, it's all about context. If you come from, a society that doesn't relate at all to, so you walk into an art collection, you're from a society that has no understanding, no record of the value of the art in that collection. You just be like, well, what are all these images on the walls? But if you are part of the community and you know the history of those images and you know the meanings of the symbols in those images, then to own the the vision of it that was made by the artist that understands the thing that we're talking about, or the context, to be involved in the context, to own the thing that's involved in the context of what you're interested in, that's part of the community. That's what's valuable. So yeah, like, I'm just reinforcing what you're saying. I'm just like, yeah, it's like traditional art collecting. It's totally about these like artifacts that relate to specific contexts that communities find valuable or are interested in.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add because that was so so all-encompassing what both Christian and Rodell shared. And Wyatt, of course, because we're married, we have some sort of collective brain. And I was going to bring up that Kim Kardashian dress as an example from a fashion perspective of how I think NFTs have tremendous value of, there's tons of counterfeit fashion out there. There's a lot of difficulty in tracing verified items. And I think that NFTs, like Chris said, are going to be so ubiquitous that it depends on from what angle do you come, like what industry are you in, what type of practitioner are you, that NFTs have value in different ways. So from a fashion perspective, it certainly has value from the verification of IP, like it does for all artists, but for the consumer in particular, like knowing that this is a real Birkin bag, knowing that this is the Marilyn Monroe dress that's 60 years old, that type of verification obviously has tremendous value. From an independent designer perspective, it has given me a way to interact with my customer that they're no longer a customer, they're a community member. We are now co-creating value around our NFTs beyond even the art that we created as a collaboration, Rodell and I, and the variety of artists. The artwork in and of itself is just so beautiful, in our opinion, obviously, and worth owning. But it also is now creating access to the variety of other experiences that Wildflower offers, as in events, carnival, there's a whole host of educational content that we've created for the community, with the community, that the NFTs now allow us to have access with the community members in a way that we couldn't trace before. So for us, I think NFTs, just like, the list is long as to how we've learned to leverage this technology and leverage the simple aspect of it being traceable, transparent, tradable, all of these things. But I can say the one major takeaway as an independent designer and practitioner who's sort of learned by doing is that we have learned by doing experimentally over and over and over again, having no idea what was going to come. And we've learned by learning together. Like, as I mentioned, it just so happens that the four of us on this call have collaborated in many different ways. And I have learned so much from just learning from the aspects of NFTs that Christian understands deeply, Rodell understands deeply, and Wyatt understands deeply, because we each come at it from a very different angle. I think you're on mute, Wyatt.
Oh, I have like a drop going on right now of my first NFT. So sorry, it just started. I got a little distracted there.
Classic. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just say what's interesting is like the photographs that are dropping right now are in the collections of like major museums like the Whitney and serious art collectors. And the fact that now they're accessible to anyone, whoever's going to click buy now first, to me is like amazing, you know, and the fact that it's so easy to collect artwork. Like I collect artwork. There's a artwork painting behind me from a Trinidadian artist. And now that I can like easily purchase one of Rodell's works, or Duckman has a huge project coming out soon that I hope he tells us about. And like the fact that I can like collect so many different artists from all over the world without going anywhere, it, to me is just like groundbreaking. And that's what excites me right now the most about NFTs. But I'm curious too, because you guys have mentioned how certain NFTs can have utilities and offer access to different things and community and membership. And a lot of the NFTs I purchase are just art. They don't have any utility. And I'm just buying it because I love it as art. And I plan to get big screens to show them like you're seeing on our screen right now in front of us. But tell me what you guys think about utilities and the importance of utilities, or are they always important? When are they important? Duckman, it looks like you want to jump in.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, I agree with you from a art standpoint. Be in NFT form, there's utility in itself. So there's no issues with shipping. There's no issues with damage. There's no issues with storage. They're flexible ways to display it, like you said, on a dynamic electric display, a LED screen or so. Instantly transferable. And I don't think utility is necessary, but at the end of the day, art is just one use case of non-fungible tokens. And I think we'll all use and collect NFTs as normal social interactions, because a unique token at the end of the day is just an ID. It can be used as a membership card, a loyalty card for a business, or access to a party or a carnival fete, like how we used to have committees back in the day with like analog pen and paper. So depending on what your purpose is, you can find a use case for these tokens, and you can find utility in what it is. But as purely as an artist, there is added value in using it without having to provide extra utility to its consumer, to its buyer.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Rodell?
I think utility is really interesting. Um, I've seen I feel like so many questions relating to NFTs. When I think about it, the what I come back to, or the answer usually seems to have something to do with community. And maybe that has to do with the inherent like fact that the value of any NFT is really determined by the group of people who are paying attention to it, or related somehow to the person minting it, the artist, or whoever it is that's creating the NFT. So, like when I think of utility, I think of one particular project on the Tezos blockchain. It's by an artist called Threesomes, and this artist makes these like little baseball cards, like paintings. So it's JPEGs, but they are JPEGs. They are photos of paintings that are done like modified baseball cards. But what he's really done is turned the collection of these baseball cards into like this elaborate game in which like if you buy one of them, it guarantees that you're gonna have access like specific special access to a future one that's more rare. And he encourages you to like burn or like get rid of, you take away from the blockchain kind of um, the one that you bought in order to access a more rare one. It's basically just this like massive game, and there are like thousands of people that play it. Um, some of the perks are like you have access to events in real life, and like it's just an example of like a group of people who really find enjoyment in this game that's being played that's kind of related to NFTs. And so I find that type of thing really interesting because it's just a way for people to create something, like it's just something that exists in the world that brings a bunch of people together who are interested in something. In this case, it's these paintings that are done on baseball cards. Um, but they meet each other, they have all kinds of interactions they make, they become friends. They like all this is because of this game, because of the utility of this NFT. And I find that type of thing interesting. But ultimately, I'm really also very interested in like no utility in like an NFT being um, simply about the art. Like I think that what's really revolutionary for me is the like value, the way that NFTs have been able to create value around digital art. And I don't want artists to have to do anything more than just make their work. I don't believe that utility is necessary. And Duckman was saying, not saying that it's necessary, that it's just I think it's an interesting thing that can be attached to NFTs. But what I'm really interested in is how it just allows artists to get paid for their work. And I don't want, you know, I think modifying your practice to make it an NFT practice, that each artist has to negotiate to what degree they're going to change what they do in order to accommodate an NFT practice, or like working with NFTs. Ultimately, I really believe in it as just a means of adding value to what artists are already doing. And I believe artists should be able to, like, just without having to think about what perks, or, you know, without having to gamify the practices in any way, should just be able to produce their work.
Wyatt, you're on mute.
Please don't mute me anymore, even if there's background noise. If we could touch on like how can NFTs be game changers for Caribbean artists, especially when oftentimes it's challenging for up and coming artists to sell their art in the Caribbean. And how do you get international exposure, and how can the NFT community help local Caribbean artists start making money from their work? Anya, do you have any ideas on this?
I actually think it would be great for Rodell to answer this. And I think actually one of the questions that just popped up was for you, Rodell, about this exact topic. I'm happy to
Yeah.
add up to you.
Thanks, Anya. Again, I was thinking about it, and it came back to community. So the question was about how did I let me actually like get the actual words of the question. So it's how were you able to gain traction in the NFT marketplace and achieve sales? And the answer is definitely community. I was and for the first few months of minting NFTs, I had no sales. And it was very frustrating. And I was minting work on the Ethereum blockchain, and I was sharing as much as I could. But sales really only started coming in after I started interacting with more people on the Tezos blockchain, and also interacting with more people, like just kind of connecting with people that I knew from my like just extensive history of like online, like making internet art, making art online. So the answer is people have to continue connecting, getting together, sharing each other's work, talking about when they buy each other's work, introducing collectors to the network, basically building community around these assets. Like the group of people that decide that a thing is valuable determine the value of that thing. When other people, there's this artist called Ed Marola on Tezos, and Ed Marola was asked, why do people buy NFTs? And had the most brilliant answer. He said that people buy NFTs because if they don't, somebody else will. And that really speaks to like community assigning value to an object. If there's not a community around an NFT, if there's nobody else who will buy that NFT, if you don't buy it, why would anybody buy it? It's a collectible thing, and collectibles are all about like. Now, you know who does buy NFTs that nobody else will buy? People who believe in the art and like people who want to support an artist and like add energy, just add. I didn't start buying art really until NFTs because when I started selling NFTs, and I had like all the digital currency to be able to buy art, right? But like I guess in prior to that, you know, I wasn't really making money from digital art, so I couldn't buy real art in the real world, really. And when I started buying art, because of my own NFT sales, I started to think about it. Started to become I started to be more conscious about why I was buying certain artists' art. Now, sometimes I'd be buying art because the collective, you know, group kind of believes is valuable. Like I maybe also like it, but often I would buy art just because I wanted to support. I love the work that an artist did, and I wanted to support the conditions that allow that artist to continue making that work. And when people bought work of mine that like wasn't very popular or whatever, they were saying, you know, I want you to continue making work like this. It's like voting with your dollar or something. And so for Caribbean artists getting into NFTs, it's probably going to be frustrating at first because before there's a community around your work, you're really only going to be supported by like people who kind of see the vision and like want to support you. You know, just like in the traditional art world, you know, like when you start making art, there's not a community around your work. You're going to be showing as much as you can. You want to be kind of introducing your work as much as you can and building community around it, building an audience. And once that gets enough traction, as this question, it's a good word. So I should also point out that I've been saying I've been making digital art since 2008. I've been interacting with people online for, you know, over a decade. And I think that has a lot to do with having sort of influential people share my work, having artists who have larger audiences than me share their work. I think it also matters to be dedicated and to be always like pushing, but I mean, Caribbean artists are doing that anyway. So I really think it's about just community and just about making like connections. It's just about network.
Yeah, so it's not just something you just show up necessarily and drop some things on a marketplace and you're going to sell out overnight.
Right.
You know, we see people like Nicholas Huggins in the audience too, who similar, like he's, you know, been developing his work for years now as a graphic designer, as an illustrator, as a branding consultant, and he's had great success with NFTs. I think similar to you, he's been able to build his community and touch and kind of, he has a community to start with, but also he's constantly putting out more work. And one thing that I've noticed you do is I was just showing some of your work on the different blockchains. So I see that you have certain work on Foundation. You have other work on the various Tezos sites like Taya, if I'm saying that correctly, and the newer one, Versum. And so I'm curious, could you and Duckman give us some advice or thoughts on why choose certain blockchains or certain marketplaces over others? And you know, what are the benefits or what are the reasons you do that with your work?
Sure, I could jump in here. The Ethereum blockchain tends to be the most popular one because it has the most volume, it has the most liquidity. It's the second largest blockchain, it has the most users. So when you upload something there, you have the most exposure as a creator, and you're probably more likely to get a sale that way. However, there are other blockchains that came about that promise to be faster and cheaper. And from a creator standpoint, if you want to lower your barriers to entry and you don't really want to be on the highest of volume exchanges competing with all these people, it's in your interest to probably use an alternative blockchain. So, for example, Tezos, which Rodell mentioned, costs like 1/100th of what it would cost to use Ethereum. So microtransactions aren't even possible on Ethereum. One of the benefits of using NFTs and creating digital art is that you can create varying amount of editions of a single piece of work that allows more accessibility. So instead of selling a piece of work as a one of a kind piece of art for $1,000 or $10,000, you could turn it into an edition of 10 or an edition of 100 and earn the same amount of money selling it to multiple people at a cheaper price, maybe for $10 instead of 100, which also would build your brand because you have all these digital ambassadors collecting your work, right? Now, if you were to use an expensive blockchain like Ethereum, which is due to its engineering, we won't get into that, just to upload that image and put it for sale might cost you the equivalent of hundreds of USD. So it makes things like that impossible. So that is one of the reasons I think people would use other blockchains, and these other blockchains were engineered in the first place to provide these opportunities for creators and collectors. Accessibility, I think, is the key.
Anya, I know you also launched your Wildflower series. It's a collaboration, like you said, with Rodell and many other artists like Marlon. And you did that on Polygon, on OpenSea, and also on Ethereum on Foundation. Did you notice any different results with those two?
Yes, well, in my classic stubborn nature, I did not listen to my consultants in the first instance. And the first one, too high and on Foundation. So it sat there forever and ever and ever, which was a real humility, humble lesson for me to listen more often. And of course, the second round, we, as you said, minted it on Polygon, on OpenSea, and it sold out in a night, which had a lot to do as well with how we promoted that sale and how community oriented. We minted it live. It was super exciting, and it became a very covetable piece of token because it represented even more than just the art, because it represented a belonging, as Rodell has mentioned many times. So I think although the transactional process of purchasing on Polygon versus on Ethereum was definitely more challenging for the owners, and that's something that we've learned over time, how to kind of handhold people who are novices to this space, how to buy and how to buy on different blockchains. There's a lot of collective learning that we've realized is necessary. So the question about bringing sort of success of Caribbean artists in this space, I do think requires an engagement with your buying audience, converting people from traditional art buying to NFT buying if there's a willingness and interest there. And we learned that through the experience of selling on Polygon versus Ethereum. So I think there's like pros and cons to all of these various blockchains. And I think accessibility, to Chris's point, varies depending on where on the spectrum you exist. If you already hold crypto, you're already very accustomed to participating in sort of crypto related purchases, then maybe buying on Ethereum on Foundation is not a big deal. But on the flip side, accessibility as it pertains to your income brackets and your willingness to spend a certain amount of money on art, you might increase your audience, which is what I experienced with being on a blockchain that's more affordable, more accessible, and allows for a wider spectrum of people to participate. So I think accessibility is, again, at the heart of it, but accessibility means different things to different people. So I think really like zeroing in on who's your target audience, who do you want to become your target audience. So in the case of Wildflower, we have actively developed a community around education and onboarding people into Web3 so that they become our audience, and not waiting for people to get involved, like being active about this sort of evangelizing process. And then we kind of like go to the blockchain that makes the most sense for that audience. So it's all this sort of matchmaking and strategy that we have learned is 100% necessary, and testing and trying and failing and trying and failing. And moving with the technology, because as Rodell would attest to, the blockchains and the platforms he was using a year ago don't even exist anymore. And that is a huge part of this experience as well, is just sort of being agile enough to roll with the punches and keep your audience engaged as you go forward. You're on mute again. It's not me doing it, just so you know.
I'm the oldest one in the group here. My age is showing with the mute skills. Yeah, note Apple, let's get a mute button on the headphones so you don't have to like keep, okay? If Apple's listening, thank you. So yeah, I think, we started Island because we realized a lot of people are not getting into the space because they don't know where to start. There's so many questions, there's so many different ways to do this that you could go around in circles forever and then just never do anything. And the other challenge that I think artists have too is that how do you get exposure? How do we get people to see the work and find the work? And so we created the Island site just as a catalog of Caribbean artists and Caribbean NFT projects, so that there's one place where any collector or curator can go and find work by Caribbean people. And we're also now offering guidance and strategy, because there is no one answer. Which marketplace, which blockchain, what price to start at? Should I do editions? Should I do one of one? It's totally unique for your project and your goals and what you want to get out of it. And I could tell you there's stuff I pass on Foundation because I don't have that much ETH to drop on it, even though I want it. But then I can go on Tezos and pick up 10 pieces and get a Zoe Osborne and get a Rodell, and you know what I mean, and really spread it out too. And what you said earlier about like where you put your money as a collector, that's who you're supporting. That's who you're helping to grow and to continue. And I think if more Caribbean artists can kind of humble themselves, like Anya was talking about, and put work up that might be starting lower than the price point they want, or creating additions so that the individual image is a little lower priced, it might welcome more new collectors. And I think that what's also amazing now in NFTs is that the division between collector and artist is disappearing. Duckman is a collector, but now he's launching a huge NFT project in the next couple months that he's created. And I go to Rodell's collections to learn about other artists that I don't know about that he's collected. So I think it's beautiful how you can be both creator and collector and supporter and a patron of the arts and an artist all at the same time.
Yeah, I want to jump in here, Wyatt, because you're making me aware of something. You reminded me of something with all this that you're saying that I wanted to say, and it kind of answers that question about like, or it's one possible answer or part of the answer to the question of like how to gain traction or how Caribbean artists can get in, and it is, I want to say, to just get in, just to get in, just to get in and pay attention. Like I learn so much on Twitter every day. The whole thing is happening on Twitter because none of the platforms have any social media. So if you follow any of us on Twitter, you're gonna see projects that we like that we're retweeting. You're gonna see conversations between people about like how they're doing all kinds of things. And there's really no like handbook or anything, but people are troubleshooting all the time. People are talking all the time about how to do things. People are inviting each other to Discord spaces and to Twitter spaces all the time. And there's just this huge community. And so like a big part of access is literacy, and so you learn about what's going on by just being in it. And like Anya was saying, like there are like platforms that everybody was on last year that don't even exist now. So where's everybody going? Like, how would you even know what to do? And the answer to that is you have to be there. And then, in terms of like opportunities or even like ideas for like how to do things, like Wyatt was saying, there's no one way to do things. But if you're paying attention all the time to what's going on, when a new space pops up or a new currency is kind of what everybody's on, or a group of people is moving from one platform to another, if you're there, you might you might have an idea for how to participate in whatever it is that's going on there. And it might just be a moment that it makes sense to do that. There are so many fads, there are so many during the course of this last year, there were just moments when like a certain type of NFT was hot, and maybe you are interested in making that type of NFT. Maybe your work falls into that category, and that's your moment to find a bunch of collectors that like the kind of thing that you're doing, or that's your moment to like get in touch with connect to a whole bunch of artists who are doing that type of thing. Um, but if you're not there, then you miss it, and you don't know. I mean, not that it's not always going on. You can jump in at any time, and I believe you can jump in at any time and find people, find community. But my point is just to be there. So even if it's a little confusing, even if you're not making sales, just stick around and pay attention, and you're gonna learn stuff.
I think it's really important that we make the viewers realize that the opportunity in this space cannot be overstated. So we have this transnational framework now where you can get on an international market and find new sources of income. There's a new digital economy. There's a low cost of entry. There's high liquidity. And as young people, it is important that you try to kickstart your idea, because in the Caribbean, we have suffered from two problems. Underrepresentation is one, and discrimination is another. And I think this space in its decentralized nature just automatically removes the discrimination aspect. And I don't mean discrimination like race or anything like that. I just mean, if you were to try to use a site like Kickstarter or Indiegogo and try to kickstart a business or art-based business, like a game, or maybe you want to kickstart a CD or something and try to raise funding, we are systematically excluded from that because of regulatory reasons, banking and Forex, especially in Trinidad. So with crypto now and with NFTs, you can use these platforms to kickstart your art or your ideas in a decentralized manner. And no one can keep you down. Once your art is online, once your project is online, you're on this stage. You're on this stage with all these users and the low cost of entry and the high liquidity. There's no barriers. And as buyers, the NFTs give us early access, which secures our position not only as a customer, but as an early supporter. And early supporters often tend to be rewarded. So try to see this not as just a platform of selling art, but as like a Shark Tank or something that you could use from your computer in your home in the Caribbean. And I really think it's something for anybody that's listening that hasn't created a wallet yet to try. It's free. It's as easy as making an email address. Get your hands wet, get your feet wet, and just try. It's a low cost of entry, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to be here, to be grasped at in this space right now.
I think I'm just going to pick up on that in the context of underrepresentation and accessibility for women in the creative fields and for women across the variety of industries that are often underrepresented and discriminated against. And I think, a comment was just made about this entire world being sort of like the post-colonial marketplace by Lisa Howie. And I think that is such a great way to frame this, because the opportunities now belong to us in a true sovereign sense. Like, we actually have control over how we sort of move this technology forward, and not just in the ways that we can sort of tack on to what's existing. We get to actually, to some degree, as much as we choose, guide the way that this technology gets used. So as a female practitioner in the creative industries, but also as a social entrepreneur, I think that this is a world where impacting our region on the ground level, by bringing revenue here, by bringing accessibility through, platforms like Islands, by just sort of like creating avenues for our work to be seen and purchased and then, remunerated in ways that actually are proportionate to the work that's being done is revolutionary. I keep using this word, but I really do think it is revolutionary. And I think we have seen female Caribbean artists in particular, pioneering across a wide spectrum of categories, from music like Chantel, to Diana Sinclair in photography, to Zoe Osborne in architecture and interior design. I mean, it's just they're killing it, and these are like actual tangible examples of how Caribbean women and Caribbean artists in general are pioneering. They're not just participating, they're actually like charting a course. And I think that is incredibly exciting. I think it shows that we've been held back for so long. We're just like bursting to take the stage and to own this space. And I mean, I'm as idealistic as they come when it comes to Web3, but I certainly, from the aspect of sort of Caribbean sovereignty and ownership and leadership in this new technology, I am 100% primary advocate. And I think for me personally, how that impacts us from a social and socioeconomic standpoint is where I'm most excited. Like if we can see an entire creative class emerge out of this technology, where in the Caribbean creativity is our primary asset, it will revolutionize how we live and what our experience of life will be. And I'm so excited for what is to come as a result of that.
Yeah, I think that's really important to think about. And we're seeing artists like Diana Sinclair, who's only, I think, 19 years old, and she's like one of the biggest NFT artists right now, and doing stuff with Super Rare and Instagram, and Zoe Osborne, from Barbados, who's doing exhibitions in Miami, and the fact that you can be a part of so many different experiences and different art shows and collections so easily, and without leaving where you live, and without leaving necessarily your other work and things, I think is really remarkable. So I want to take some time to see if we have any questions too from the audience. I know there were some in the comments. So I'm not sure if there's a way for people to ask questions or just to put something in the comments.
I do see that there's a call out for Island to be in the Turks and Caicos, which, in a decentralized world, you already belong. So if you have artwork that you want to submit, you should definitely go to island.io and submit to us there.
I know someone was asking earlier, how, like, especially with Rodell, how did you gain traction with the marketplaces and the sales? And you touched on that earlier, Rodell, but I'm just wondering if anyone else also has tips on artists getting started in NFTs, how they could start building their community, building their collector base, and being part of communities that already exist.
I'll just say one little thing here. I think, first of all, people need to realize that this is not a hustle or like a get rich quick scheme. If you are an established artist, then and you have a following and you post this up, your followers will probably patronize you. If you are up and coming, you're new to the scene, then you have to build your following the same way that you will build anyone else. Because speaking from a collector standpoint, unless I really, really resonate with what you create, I probably wouldn't buy it unless I know who you are. People often buy art, unfortunately, not because art is subjective, but they often buy it not because it's the best, but because who the creator is. So you have to establish yourself as a creator, and that comes in forms outside of this space as well. Build your social following. Get recognized. Do whatever you have to do. Our digital identities now are more important than ever. So I think creators just need to work on their digital identity, especially when they're presenting themselves on a digital space. And with that, I think success will follow.
Yeah, I want to maybe a good thing to say at this point, just to follow what you're saying, Chris, is that in my experience, um, there's kind of there's a lot of hype in the space and there's a lot of pressure and there's the feeling often um, there's a lot of I guess impetus to kind of rush things and to feel like you always need to share. There's a kind of exhaustion. Like people talk a lot. There's a lot of like kind of pitfalls that people talk about, like the feeling the need to share all the time or to always kind of be having something to share. People also talk about a kind of toxic positivity that can cause exhaustion. There's this idea that like um, like just being involved in the space is gonna make all these amazing things happen, and then artists come in, things don't happen right away, and you feel really kind of dejected. um I want to say that just like with just like always with your traditional practice, just like just being a maker, um taking your time to take care of your like mental health and to just like to make your work at your own pace, share only what you love. I think it's really important to mint only things that you love, because if you come back to it a month later and you see something that's like that you presented, like you put your name on, that you don't love, maybe because you felt pressure to have to share something or to be involved, it really doesn't feel great. I've once or twice shared things out of feeling kind of pressured, and I really regret it. So now, and it's reflected. People can feel when the people who are into it for art, who are into it for the sake of collecting art, they can tell when you just haven't put your best out. So, not that this has anything to do with like whether or not Caribbean artists, what kind of traction they have. I just mean for artists in general, like for anybody in the space. This is just, and then to tack that onto what the document was saying, um, if that's all in alignment, all the better for your sales and your like audience building and all of that. Um, it can be a healthy, positive experience. It doesn't have to be this kind of hypey, draining thing that happens to you.
Um, I have to run. I'm so sorry, but I just wanted to add to what everybody just said, and also just to answer Hezron and let you know that we're already texting in our group to add Turks and Caicos to the list. So please try again soon. And because I think what for me has helped tremendously, and I've said this many times, is belonging to this community. And I think if anybody here feels an affinity for this community, like the four of us and the community that has been participating in the comments, we all belong to a Caribbean NFT group chat that quite literally does this kind of support, and traction often comes from that kind of conversation and sharing and vulnerability in these spaces. So if you do want to belong to that, I'll just make a quick plug that you should send us an email at island.nft@gmail.com and let us know, and we can add you to the chat. And it's a good start. It's a really great start to kind of just jump in and lean on each other and ask questions and do what Rodell said, take your time and learn as you go. So thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry I have to run. But I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
I think we all will have to run soon, but I would like to answer a question I saw being asked in the chat by Aya Caribbean. And Aya asked, when you sell your art, does that mean buyers buy an original and no one else can buy? Yes. So it depends on how many editions you choose to sell, which is something we touched on earlier. So if you sell a one-of-a-kind, one edition piece of digital art, there's a transaction history that shows that is the only one, and only that person owns it. And there's no way to edit that on a blockchain. There's no way for you to duplicate or make more transactions, more editions in that transaction that happened in the past. But what I would like to say, to expand on this a little bit, is the terms of sale matter. So when you're selling your art, you can talk about whether or not that buyer receives intellectual property for it. So they may get non-commercial use, which means they only have the right to like display it in their home or in a presentation for school or something like that. But it doesn't give them the right to like make merchandise and resell it, or prints and resell it, and this type of thing. That could be retained with you as the artist, as the original creator, and you are perfectly entitled to do those things if that's in the terms of sale. There are artists and projects that give intellectual property rights with the sale of that work of art, and in that case, the buyer could enforce that no one else can buy it if they so choose. And this is a common practice in the NFT space, not just with visual art, but even with music. And people will be using the images or the music that they purchase to create merchandise and T-shirts, to put them in video games, to make derivatives of them and use those derivatives in their own art or their own comics or their own shows. So I don't know if that answers your question thoroughly. I hope it does.
Yeah, and I would just say that it's easy to ask any of us questions on Twitter. So Chris the Duckman on Twitter, Rodell Warner on Twitter, Anya DeRogue on Twitter, Wyatt Gallery on Twitter, and Island NFT on Twitter. Very accessible. Please reach out if there's further questions, or if there were quotes that you enjoyed. That's a great way to build community by just connecting. So thank you all for being with us today. Lisa, thank you so much for including us.
You kidding? I'm texting in the chat behind the scenes, everybody, that this is the best talk I've listened to, and I've listened to quite a few, and I've been reading, of course, not just in preparation for this today, but I've been trying to figure it out. You guys really hit it in a way that I get, and maybe it's because I watched Star Wars. I don't know what it was. There are certain ways in which you articulated, and the way that you said something, Chris, that you guys have emphasized, excuse my dogs, is that I didn't understand the community side of each acquisition. I didn't get that it has this merit. And I really also, even though I'm a real anti-bank machine, I really also didn't get how also this is the way in which we break out of these colonialist confines and traps and historical oppression. Like, this is brilliant. I'm a fan. I'm freaking out. And I'm texting people saying you have to watch this if you haven't seen this, because I think you're going to get it. And what you've offered also, when you talk about community, that's, I think, the other challenge is that you might be like my cousin in the Bronx, and she's like, I want to do an NFT. She's got a clue what to do or how to do it or who to connect with. And she feels like, she's got these great ideas, but what does she do? And you're offering support, and that's massive. So thank you all so much. Yeah.
In terms of offering support, I would just like to throw this out there if anybody's still listening. There's a prominent marketplace called Foundation, and to have a verified account and sell NFTs, to sell art there, you need to have an invitation. If you are an established artist and you would like an invitation to upload your art on Foundation, I have 1 or 2 invites that I can offer. So you can contact me on Twitter at Chris the Duckman, and perhaps I could get you started with that invitation.
No one does that.
Wow.
That's so awesome.
That's big. That's big.
I appreciate all of you. Thank you all so much.
No problem.
Yeah.
And when I get down to Trinidad, I'm coming to show up.
Yeah.
Stay well, everybody. And hopefully we can continue this conversation, Wyatt, and bring you into the program as we go forward. And perhaps there's an opportunity for us to do more together with the Atlantic World Art Fair and Islands between one fair iteration to the next, because it's all happening now. Yeah, awesome. Thanks you all. Thanks everybody so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.
Take care. Thanks everybody. Thanks so much for your